When my daughter got married, I hid the $7 million inheritance from my late husband. 3 days later, her husband showed up at my doorstep with a contract. It stated, "I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled." For 37 years, I lived in a modest 2-story house on Maple Street with my husband, Robert. We weren't wealthy by any means, but Robert had a brilliant mind for investments. He worked as an accountant for a manufacturing company, but in his spare time, he studied the stock market like some men study baseball statistics. When he passed away from a sudden heart attack 2 years ago, I discovered he'd quietly built a portfolio worth $7 million. $7 million. The number still made my head spin. Robert had always been secretive about money, not in a suspicious way, but in that old-fashioned manner where the husband handled finances and the wife managed the household. I'd known we were comfortable, but I'd had no idea we were that comfortable. The lawyer who read Robert's will seemed almost amused by my shock. Everything went to me, of course. Robert and I had one daughter, Jennifer, and he'd assumed I would manage the inheritance and eventually pass it down to her. But something in me hesitated to tell Jenny right away. Maybe it was maternal instinct. Maybe it was the memory of how she'd changed after she started dating Marcus. Marcus Webb entered our lives 18 months ago at Jennifer's company barbecue. He was handsome in that calculated way, perfect teeth, expensive haircut, a watch that cost more than my car. He worked in sales, he said, and within minutes of meeting me, he'd complimented my house, my garden, and asked pointed questions about what I did with my time now that Robert was gone. "Does Jennifer help support you?" he'd asked with a concerned frown. "It must be hard on a widow's pension." I'd smiled politely and changed the subject, but something about the question stuck in my mind like a splinter. Jennifer fell for him fast. My smart, cautious daughter, who'd spent years focusing on her career as a hospital administrator, suddenly couldn't stop talking about Marcus. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within 12, they were planning a wedding. I tried to be happy for her. I really did. But Marcus had a way of looking around my house that made me feel like he was appraising rather than admiring. He asked about Robert's life insurance. He wondered aloud about property values in my neighborhood. He suggested, more than once, that I should downsize. "You don't need all this space, Mom Margaret," he'd say, using a nickname I'd never invited. "Jenny and I could help you find a nice condo. Maybe invest the difference?" The wedding took place on a perfect October Saturday. Jennifer looked radiant in her grandmother's restored lace gown. I cried during the ceremony, partly from joy, partly from an anxiety I couldn't name. As I watched Marcus slip the ring onto my daughter's finger, I felt Robert's absence like a physical weight. He would have known what to make of this man. He would have asked the right questions. At the reception, Marcus's parents barely spoke to me. His mother, Diane, wore a designer dress and actual diamonds and spent most of the evening complaining about the venue, the food, and the fact that the couple hadn't chosen somewhere more upscale. His father, Richard, was a real estate developer who'd spent cocktail hour handing out business cards. Old money, new manners. That's what my mother would have called them. The newlyweds left for their honeymoon in Aruba. I went home to my quiet house and tried to feel happy. 3 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Marcus stood on my porch in a suit. No Jennifer in sight. He held a leather folder and wore an expression I'd never seen before. Something cold and businesslike that made the hair on my neck stand up. "Mom Margaret," he said, stepping inside before I could invite him in. "We need to talk about your financial situation." He walked straight to my dining room table and opened the folder. Inside were papers, legal documents with my name and Jennifer's printed across the top. My hands went cold as I recognized words like power of attorney and estate transfer. "Jennifer told me about Robert's portfolio," Marcus said, not quite meeting my eyes. 7 million is a serious responsibility. Too serious for someone your age to manage alone. How did he know? I'd never told Jennifer the exact amount. I stood frozen in my own dining room, staring at documents that would sign away everything Robert had built. Marcus had spread them across the table like he was displaying merchandise, his manicured finger tapping a signature line. "It's a simple power of attorney," he explained in that smooth sales voice. "Jenny's worried about you managing such a large sum at your age. She asked me to help arrange proper financial guardianship." At my age, I was 63, not 90. I still drove, managed my own household, volunteered at the library twice a week. My mind was sharp enough to recognize a con when I saw one. "Jennifer asked you to do this?" I kept my voice steady. "She's concerned, Mom Margaret. We both are." He pulled out a pen, an expensive Mont Blanc, naturally. "The sooner we get this filed, the sooner we can move your assets into a properly managed trust. For your protection. For my protection." The words made my stomach turn. "I need time to review these with my own attorney," I said. Marcus's smile tightened. "Of course. But Jenny's counting on having this settled before they get back from Aruba. She's been so stressed about you being vulnerable to scammers and predatory financial advisors." The audacity of it nearly took my breath away. He was the predator, sitting at my table, using my daughter's name as a weapon. "I'll think about it," I said, walking toward the front door. "Thank you for bringing these by." He didn't move. For a long moment, he just looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. Then he gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and stood. "Don't take too long deciding," he said at the door. "These things are time-sensitive. And Mom Margaret?" He leaned in slightly. "Jenny really does want what's best for you. Try not to disappoint her." The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. I closed the door behind him and stood in the entryway, my heart hammering. Through the window, I watched him drive away in a BMW I was certain he couldn't afford on a salesman's salary. Not unless he'd done this before. The house felt different now, violated somehow. I walked back to the dining room and sat at the table where Marcus had spread his trap. My phone sat nearby, Jennifer's smiling face on the lock screen from her wedding day. How did he know about the 7 million? I'd told exactly 3 people: Robert's attorney, my accountant, and Jennifer. I'd told Jenny 6 months ago during a moment of weakness when she'd been stressed about money. I'd wanted to reassure her that she'd be taken care of, that she didn't need to worry about her future. "Really, Mom? That much?" she'd said, her eyes going wide. "Your father was smarter than anyone knew," I'd replied. "But let's keep it between us for now. I'm still figuring out what to do with it." She'd hugged me. She'd promised not to tell anyone. And now, 3 days after her wedding, her husband was in my house with power of attorney documents. I thought back over the past 18 months, reviewing every interaction with new eyes. Marcus asking about Robert's profession. Marcus wondering about life insurance payouts. Marcus suggesting I downsize, invest differently. Let him introduce me to his financial guy. And Jennifer, my Jennifer, had she been part of this from the start? Or had Marcus poisoned her mind after she'd innocently shared our secret? The pain of not knowing which betrayal I was facing was almost worse than the betrayal itself. I picked up my phone and called Robert's attorney, Edward Chen. We'd known each other for 15 years. He'd handled Robert's will, and I trusted him completely. "Edward, I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning," I said when he answered. "And I need you to tell me how I can protect my assets from my son-in-law." There was a pause. "Margaret, what's happened?" "Nothing yet," I said, looking at the spot where Marcus had stood. "But I'm going to make sure nothing does." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and wrote down everything I knew, everything I suspected, every red flag I'd ignored. By dawn, I had a plan forming. It wasn't sophisticated, but it was solid. Don't sign anything. Document everything. Find out exactly who Marcus Webb really was. And most importantly, figure out how deep my daughter was in this scheme. Because if Jennifer had willingly betrayed me, I needed to know. And if Marcus had manipulated her, I needed proof. Either way, Robert's legacy wasn't going into that man's pocket. I'd burn the money before I let that happen. Edward Chen's office was in a modest building downtown, nothing like the glass towers where Marcus probably imagined wealthy people conducted their business. Edward had been Robert's friend before becoming his attorney, and when I walked into his office Wednesday morning, the concern on his face was genuine. "Tell me everything," he said, closing the door. I showed him the documents Marcus had brought. Edward put on his reading glasses and studied them in silence, his expression darkening with each page. "This is aggressive," he finally said. "A full power of attorney, asset transfer authorization, and, Jesus, Margaret, this clause here would give him control over your medical decisions too. Can he force me to sign? No. But if Jennifer is pressuring you..." He set the papers down. "Is she?" "I don't know what Jennifer is doing," I admitted. "They're in Aruba until Sunday." "But Edward, how did he know about the $7 million? I only told 3 people. You, me, and Jennifer, 6 months ago." Edward leaned back in his chair. "Has she given Marcus access to any of your documents? Bank statements? Investment accounts?" "Not from me directly. But they've been living together for 8 months. If she had papers at their apartment..." I trailed off, feeling sick. "Margaret, I need to ask you something difficult." Edward's voice gentled. "Is it possible Jennifer is cooperating with him willingly?" The question I'd been avoiding all night. "I don't want to believe it," I said. "But I can't be sure." Edward nodded slowly. "Okay. First things first. We're going to lock down your assets immediately. I'll contact your bank and investment accounts today, flag any attempt to make changes, add additional security protocols. If anyone tries to access your accounts without your explicit in-person authorization, we'll know. What about the power of attorney? What if Jennifer tries to convince me it's for my own good? Don't sign anything without me reviewing it first. Nothing. I don't care what reason they give." He pulled out a legal pad. "Now, tell me everything you know about Marcus Webb." I realized how little I actually knew. He worked in pharmaceutical sales. He drove an expensive car. His parents seemed wealthy, but cold. He'd appeared in Jennifer's life 18 months ago, like he'd been waiting for an opening. "That's not much to go on," Edward said. "But it's a start. I have a private investigator I've used for background checks in complex estate cases. Would you authorize me to have him look into Marcus's background?" "Yes," I said immediately. "Do whatever you need to do. It'll take a few days, maybe a week." Edward made notes. "In the meantime, don't be alone with Marcus if you can help it. If he comes back, tell him you're consulting with your attorney. Don't engage, don't argue, and absolutely don't sign anything." I left Edward's office feeling more grounded than I had in days. I had a plan now, a professional ally, and most importantly, my assets were protected. Marcus couldn't touch Robert's money without my physical presence and consent. The rest of that week crawled by. I went about my normal routine: library volunteering, grocery shopping, Wednesday dinner with my book club. But everything felt different, like I was moving through a movie set of my own life. Every phone call made me jump, expecting Jennifer or Marcus. Friday afternoon, Edward called. "Margaret, can you come to my office? The investigator found something." 20 minutes later, I sat across from Edward and a man named Tom Reynolds, who had the exhausted look of someone who spent too much time staring at computer screens. "Mrs. Whitmore," Tom said, sliding a folder across the desk. Marcus Webb has been married before. That's not illegal, I said carefully. No. But not disclosing it to his current wife might be problematic, especially given the circumstances of his divorce. Tom opened the folder. Marcus was married to a woman named Patricia Webb, née Taylor, from 2018 to 2021. Patricia's mother died in early 2020, leaving Patricia an inheritance of approximately $1.2 million. My blood ran cold. 6 months after the inheritance, Marcus filed for divorce. The settlement was, let's say, extremely favorable to him. Patricia's attorney claimed elder fraud, that Marcus had convinced Patricia's mother to modify her will while she was dying of cancer. But they couldn't prove it. Marcus walked away with $600,000 and no criminal charges. I stared at the documents, bank records, court filings, and photos. Marcus with a sad-looking blonde woman who had the same hollow expression I'd seen in my bathroom mirror that morning. He's done this before, I whispered. We believe so, yes, Tom said. And there's more. We can't confirm it, but there are indications of at least one other relationship prior to Patricia, also with a woman from a wealthy family. That one ended before marriage, but there was a harassment complaint filed and then quietly dropped. Edward leaned forward. Margaret, this is your evidence. Marcus Webb is a predator who targets women with family money. The timeline is too consistent to be coincidence. He meets Jennifer, learns about potential inheritance, rushes to marriage, and moves immediately to secure asset control. Does Jennifer know? My voice cracked. About his history? We don't know, Tom admitted, but I'd guess not. Men like Marcus are excellent at compartmentalizing, at being exactly what their target needs them to be. I looked at the photo of Patricia again. She looked broken. Had Marcus made her doubt her own mother? Had he isolated her from family, made her dependent, then struck when she was vulnerable? Was he doing the same thing to Jennifer? What do? I asked. Edward's jaw tightened. Now we make sure he doesn't get away with it again. Jennifer and Marcus returned from Aruba on Sunday evening. I knew because Jennifer sent me a text. Home? So tan and happy? Can we come by tomorrow to show you photos? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Of course, sweetheart. Come for lunch. That night, I barely slept. Edward and I had spent the weekend preparing. The evidence about Marcus's past was documented, copied, secured. My assets were locked down tight. Any attempt to access them would trigger immediate alerts. Edward had even contacted Patricia's divorce attorney, who'd been more than willing to share her experience with Marcus Webb. He's a chameleon, the attorney had told me over the phone. Charming, patient, and absolutely ruthless. Patricia's mother trusted him completely until it was too late. Don't make the same mistake. Monday morning, I set the dining room table with Robert's good china. Roast chicken, green beans, fresh bread from the bakery Jennifer loved. Normal. Everything had to look normal until I understood what my daughter knew. They arrived at noon, Jennifer glowing with her honeymoon tan, Marcus wearing another expensive suit. He kissed my cheek like we were the best of friends. Mom, you should see the resort, Jennifer gushed, showing me her phone. The water was so blue, and Marcus surprised me with a couple's massage. I smiled and nodded and studied my daughter's face. She looked happy. Genuinely happy, which meant either she was a better actress than I'd ever suspected, or she had no idea who she'd married. Over lunch, Marcus steered the conversation exactly where I'd expected. Mom, Margaret, have you had a chance to review those documents I brought by? He asked it casually, cutting his chicken. Jenny and I were talking about it in Aruba. We really want to help you get organized. Jennifer looked up. Documents? The power of attorney papers, Marcus said smoothly. To help your mother manage her finances. I told you about it before we left, honey. Oh, right. Jennifer turned to me. Mom, I think it's a good idea. Not because you can't handle it, she added quickly, but because it's a lot to manage alone. Marcus has connections with really good financial advisors. So she knew. Maybe not everything, but she knew enough. I set down my fork. I've decided not to sign them. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What? Marcus's fork stopped midair. I've consulted with my attorney, Edward Chen. He's advised me to maintain control of my own assets. I kept my voice pleasant. I appreciate your concern, but I'm quite capable of managing my own affairs. Jennifer looked confused. Marcus looked furious, though he covered it quickly. Mom, this is about protection, Jennifer said. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? Then Edward has all the appropriate documents on file. I looked directly at Marcus. He's been Robert's attorney for 15 years. I trust him completely. Marcus set down his fork carefully. Mom, Margaret, I don't think you understand the complexity of managing a large portfolio. Without proper guidance, you could make costly mistakes. How large do you think my portfolio is, Marcus? The question hung in the air. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's jaw tightened. Jenny mentioned Robert had been comfortable, he said carefully. Interesting. Because I only told Jennifer the specific amount. In confidence. I turned to my daughter. Sweetheart, did you share private financial information with Marcus? Jennifer's face flushed. Mom, he's my husband. We don't keep secrets. Even secrets that weren't yours to tell? This is ridiculous, Marcus said, standing up. We're trying to help you, and you're acting paranoid. Maybe your age is affecting your judgment more than we thought. There it was. The first real threat, dressed up as concern. My judgment is fine, I said, standing to face him. And my decision is final. I will not be signing over power of attorney to you or anyone else. Jenny, talk to your mother, Marcus said, his voice hard. She's making a mistake. Mom, please, Jennifer said, and she sounded close to tears. Why are you being like this? We're family now. We're supposed to help each other. The manipulation was masterful. Turn me into the unreasonable one. Make me the problem. I am helping, I said quietly. I'm protecting what your father spent his lifetime building. And I'm not changing my mind. Marcus grabbed his jacket. Let's go, Jenny. Your mother obviously doesn't trust us. Jennifer looked between us, confused and hurt. Mom? I love you, sweetheart, I said. But this isn't negotiable. They left. I watched through the window as Marcus's BMW peeled out of my driveway too fast, and I saw him yelling, saw Jennifer's head bowed. My heart broke, but my resolve held. My phone rang 15 minutes later. Edward. Margaret, someone just attempted to access your investment account. They had Jennifer's information, but not the new security protocols. The bank blocked it and contacted me. It's starting, I said. Yes, Edward agreed. Be ready. He's going to escalate. I spent the next 3 days in my house, jumping at every sound. I called my sister in Seattle and talked for 2 hours, not telling her everything, but letting her familiar voice ground me. I walked in my garden and remembered Robert planting the rose bushes, telling me they'd bloom long after he was gone. I was protecting his memory. I had to remember that Thursday afternoon, Jennifer called. Not texted, called, which she rarely did anymore. Mom? Her voice was small, tired. Can I come over? Alone? My heart clenched. Of course, baby. She arrived an hour later, looking exhausted. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing old jeans and Robert's university sweatshirt that I'd given her years ago. This was my Jennifer, not the polished wife Marcus had been creating. Coffee? I asked. She nodded, following me to the kitchen like she was 12 again. We sat at the small breakfast table where we'd had countless conversations over the years. Boy troubles, college decisions, career choices. The normalcy of it made my throat tight. "Marcus is upset," she finally said. "He thinks you don't trust him." "I don't," I said simply. Jennifer flinched. "Mom, he's my husband." "I know, and I love you, but that doesn't mean I'm signing away everything your father worked for." She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. "He says you're being selfish, that you're holding money over my head, trying to control me." The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know what to believe." Jennifer looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. "You've never been like this before. You've always been so supportive. But ever since the wedding, you've been cold to Marcus, suspicious. He thinks maybe you're lonely. Maybe losing Dad affected you more than we realized." There it was. The seed Marcus had planted. That I was mentally unstable. That my grief had warped my judgment. "Jennifer, how much do you know about Marcus's past?" She blinked. "What do you mean? Has he told you about his previous marriage?" The color drained from her face. "He was married before?" So she didn't know. Relief and horror flooded through me simultaneously. "Mom, lots of people have been married before. That doesn't mean—" His ex-wife's mother left her $1.2 million. 6 months later, Marcus filed for divorce and walked away with half. Jennifer stood up abruptly. "You had him investigated?" "I had to protect myself. Protect you." "No, you had to control me." Her voice rose. "You can't accept that I'm an adult with my own life, my own marriage. You have to interfere to—" "He showed up at my door 3 days after your wedding with power of attorney documents." I stood too, matching her volume. 3 days, Jennifer. He knew exactly how much money I had, information you shared with him in confidence, and he came here to take it. What does that tell you?" "It tells me he's trying to help you and you're too stubborn to see it." We stood across from each other, both breathing hard, the kitchen suddenly feeling too small. "Baby," I said, softening my voice. "Please. Just think about the timing. Really think about it." "I can't do this," Jennifer said, grabbing her purse. "Marcus was right. You're going to make me choose between you and my husband." "I'm not making you choose. I'm asking you to be careful." But she was already leaving, and I heard my front door slam with a finality that made my chest ache. I stood in my kitchen, shaking, wondering if I'd just lost my daughter forever. Then my phone rang. My sister Carol. "I had a feeling I should check on you," she said when I answered, and I broke down. I told her everything: Marcus, the documents, the investigation, the fight with Jennifer. I cried in a way I hadn't since Robert's funeral, and Carol listened to every word. "You're doing the right thing," she said firmly when I'd finished. "Robert would be proud of you. I might lose Jennifer over this. You might lose her worse if you don't fight. This Marcus sounds like a predator, Maggie. You can't let him destroy what Robert built, and you can't let him isolate Jenny from her family." That evening, Carol must have made calls, because my phone didn't stop ringing. My book club friends, women from the library, Robert's old colleague from the accounting firm. Even our pastor, Father Michael, called to check in. "I heard you might be going through something difficult," he said carefully. "I wanted you to know the church community is here for you." I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. Friday, Diane called. My neighbor of 15 years, the woman who'd brought casseroles after Robert died and watched my house when I traveled. "Margaret, I'm worried about you," she said. "I saw Jennifer leaving yesterday. She looked upset." I found myself telling Diane everything. She listened without judgment, then said, "My son is an attorney in family law. Would you like me to ask him about this?" Informally, I already have a lawyer, but thank you. Good. And Margaret, you're not alone in this. Whatever you need, witnesses, support, someone to sit with you if they come back, you call me. Don't try to handle this alone. That night, I made a list of everyone who'd reached out. 15 people. 15 connections. 15 witnesses. 15 people who knew I was of sound mind and judgment. Marcus had been trying to isolate me, to make me doubt myself. But I wasn't alone. And I wasn't crazy. I was a mother protecting her daughter, and a widow protecting her husband's legacy. And I had an army behind me, even if Jennifer couldn't see it yet. They came back Saturday morning. Both of them. I was in the garden pruning roses when I heard the car, and my stomach dropped when I recognized the BMW. Marcus got out first, then walked around to open Jennifer's door, the perfect gentleman. They'd coordinated this, I realized. Another attempt, more calculated this time. "Mom?" Jennifer called out with forced brightness. "We brought bagels. Can we talk?" I set down my pruning shears and wiped my hands on my jeans. Of course. Inside, Marcus set the bagel bag on the counter with a soft smile. "Mom, Margaret, I owe you an apology. I came on too strong with the power of attorney. I was thinking like a financial advisor instead of family." It was so smooth, so practiced. If I hadn't seen the evidence, if I didn't know about Patricia, I might have believed him. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "We just want to start over," Jennifer added, touching my arm. "No more talk about legal documents or finances, just family." We sat in the living room, the bagels untouched. Marcus chose the armchair, Robert's chair, with a casualness that felt deliberate. "The thing is," Marcus said, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, "Jenny's been really torn up about this conflict. She loves you so much, and it's killing her that we're not all getting along." Jennifer dabbed at her eyes. Real tears, I noticed. "And I understand your hesitation," he continued. "You don't really know me yet. I get that." So I thought, what if we approached this differently? He pulled out his phone. "I have a financial advisor, Greg Morrison, who's brilliant. What if the three of us, you, me, and Greg, just had a conversation? No pressure, no documents, just information. So you can understand your options," Jennifer added eagerly. "Make an informed decision." "I'm informed enough," I said. Marcus's smile tightened. "Mom, Margaret, with respect, I'm not sure you are. Managing $7 million isn't like managing a household budget. There are tax implications, investment strategies, estate planning considerations, which my attorney handles." "Edward Chen," Marcus said, and something in his tone made my skin crawl. "Small practice, handles mostly wills and basic estates. Is he really equipped for portfolio management of this scale? He's been adequate for 15 years. Adequate isn't optimal." Marcus stood up, starting to pace. "Look, I'm going to be blunt. Jenny is your only heir. That money will be hers eventually. Wouldn't you want it managed in a way that maximizes its value for her future?" "Marcus," Jennifer said softly, a warning. But he was done playing nice. I could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. "No, Jenny. Your mother needs to hear this." He turned to me. "You're 63. Statistically, you have maybe 20 good years left. That money should be growing, compounding, working for the next generation. Instead, it's sitting in conservative accounts earning minimal interest because you're too proud or too suspicious to accept professional help." "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "Of course you do. Because facing reality is uncomfortable." Marcus moved closer, looming over where I sat. "You know what I think? I think you're holding on to this money because it's the last bit of control you have. Robert's gone, Jenny's married, and you're scared of being irrelevant." "Marcus, stop," Jennifer said, standing up. "Someone has to say it, Jenny." Your mother is sabotaging your future because she can't let go. He crouched down in front of me, his face inches from mine. Here's what's going to happen, Mom Margaret. You're going to wake up one day soon and realize you've alienated your only daughter. She's going to stop calling, stop visiting, and you'll be alone in this big house with all that money and no one to share it with. Is that really what you want? The threat was clear. Choose the money or choose Jennifer. I stood up, forcing him to back away. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I know about Patricia. Marcus froze. I know about her mother's inheritance. I know about the divorce settlement. And I know about the complaint from the woman before her. I looked at Jennifer. I had him investigated, sweetheart. He's done this before. Jennifer's face went white. What is she talking about? She's talking crazy, Marcus said, but his voice had changed, harder, uglier. This is exactly what I mean. She's paranoid, making up stories. I have court documents, I said. Bank records. Testimony from Patricia's divorce attorney. Would you like me to show them to Jennifer? You vindictive bitch, Marcus hissed. Jennifer gasped. Marcus! He spun on her. Don't you see what she's doing? She's trying to break us up because she can't stand that you chose me over her. I didn't choose anyone over anyone, Jennifer's voice broke. Mom, why are you doing this? Because I love you, I said simply. Because your father trusted me to protect what he built. And because I won't let this man manipulate you the way he manipulated Patricia. Marcus grabbed his keys. We're leaving. And Jenny, your mother just made her choice. Remember that. He stormed out. Jennifer stood in the middle of my living room, tears streaming down her face. Is it true? She whispered. About his ex-wife? Yes. You really had him investigated? Yes. She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. I don't know who you are anymore. Then she left, following Marcus to the car. I watched them drive away and saw Marcus gesturing angrily, saw Jennifer's head in her hands. I closed the door and sank onto the couch, my whole body shaking. My phone was in my hand before I realized it, calling Edward. He showed his real face, I said when he answered. And Jennifer saw it. Good, Edward said. That's good, Margaret. Now she has information. Now she can start questioning. Or she'll hate me forever. That's a risk, but you're fighting for her, whether she knows it or not. After we hung up, I sat in Robert's chair and cried. But beneath the fear, beneath the heartbreak, there was something else. Determination. Marcus had made a mistake. He'd let me see his rage, his need for control. He'd shown Jennifer a glimpse of who he really was. Now, I just had to make sure she saw the rest. The confrontation came on Wednesday afternoon, but it wasn't at my house. It was at Edward's office, and I'd orchestrated every detail. Margaret, are you sure about this? Edward had asked when I'd outlined my plan. It's risky. I'm sure, I'd said. Jennifer needs to see everything, not just hear about it, see it. I'd called Jennifer Tuesday night. Sweetheart, I need you to come to Edward Chen's office tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's important. Mom, I can't keep doing this. Please, just 1 hour. If you still think I'm crazy after that, I'll stop. But you need to hear what I have to say. She'd agreed, reluctantly. What I hadn't told her was that Edward had also sent Marcus a formal letter requesting his presence to discuss matters regarding Mrs. Whitmore's estate planning. Men like Marcus couldn't resist the lure of money within reach. Wednesday at 2 p.m., Jennifer arrived first. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. Is this really necessary? Yes, I said simply. When Marcus walked in 10 minutes later and saw Jennifer, his face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, anger, before settling on concerned husband. Jenny, what's going on? I asked her to be here, I said. Please sit down, both of you. Edward's conference room was small but professional. A long table, 4 chairs, and a projector screen that Edward had set up that morning. Tom Reynolds, the investigator, sat quietly in the corner with a folder that had grown considerably thicker over the past 2 weeks. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said, but he sat down. "If this is another attempt to turn my wife against me—" "This is about truth," I said, taking the seat across from him. Jennifer sat beside her husband, but I noticed she didn't take his hand. "And about protecting my daughter." Edward stood. "Mr. Webb, thank you for coming. We've gathered some information that Mrs. Whitmore believes is relevant to recent discussions about her financial affairs." "I don't have to listen to this," Marcus said, starting to rise. "You were married to Patricia Taylor from 2018 to 2021, Tom said, his voice calm and factual. "Is that correct?" Marcus froze. Jennifer's head snapped toward him. "That was a different life," Marcus said carefully. "Ancient history." "Ancient history that you never mentioned to your wife," I said. Jennifer turned to him. "You were married before?" "It was a mistake, honey. A short marriage that ended badly. I didn't tell you because it wasn't relevant. Patricia's mother, Helen Taylor, died in March 2020, leaving Patricia an inheritance of $1.2 million, Tom continued, clicking to bring up documents on the projector screen. 6 months later, you filed for divorce. The settlement awarded you $600,000. "That was a fair settlement," Marcus said, his voice rising. "I was entitled to half of marital assets." "Except the inheritance wasn't a marital asset," Edward interjected. "In California, inheritances are separate property unless commingled. Patricia's attorney alleged you pressured her into joint accounts, into making you a co-beneficiary on investments, all while her mother was dying." The projector showed bank statements, transaction records, Patricia's signature, then Marcus's, transferring funds, opening accounts. Jennifer stared at the screen, then at Marcus. "You did this while her mother was dying." "It's more complicated than that," Marcus said, but sweat had appeared on his forehead. "Patricia was a mess. She couldn't handle decisions." "And there's more," Tom said. He clicked to another slide. "Before Patricia, you were in a relationship with Amanda Hendricks, daughter of the Hendricks manufacturing family. That relationship ended in 2017 after Amanda's father discovered you'd forged her signature on loan documents. The family chose not to press charges if you agreed to leave quietly." "That's a lie," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its smoothness. "I have the police report from Amanda's harassment complaint," Tom said, holding up papers, "and a sworn statement from the Hendricks family attorney." Jennifer stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "How long have you known about this, Mom?" 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She was looking at me, but I couldn't read her expression. "You've known for 2 weeks and didn't tell me?" "I wanted to be sure. I wanted evidence, not accusations." "So you humiliate me instead? You bring me here to watch my husband get—" She stopped, seemed to really see the documents on screen. "Oh my God!" Marcus reached for her. "Jenny, this is all out of context. Your mother is manipulating—" "Don't touch me." Jennifer stepped back. "You were married. You took money from your dying mother-in-law, and you never told me. Because it would have been weaponized exactly like this." Marcus gestured at the screen. "Your mother was looking for any excuse to tear us apart, and she found one. She twisted my past into—" "There's more," I said quietly. "Show them the timeline, Tom." Tom clicked through dates. Marcus met Patricia in January 2018, 3 months after her father died, leaving Helen Taylor, Patricia's mother, as the sole surviving wealthy parent. He proposed in April, married in June. Fast courtship. Click. Marcus met Amanda Hendricks in March 2016, 2 weeks after her grandfather's will made her a beneficiary of the family trust. Engaged in 7 months, ended when the forgery was discovered. Click. And Marcus met Jennifer in June 2023. 3 months after my husband died, I finished. The timing isn't coincidence. Jennifer's face had gone from red to white. You targeted me? No, honey, no. Marcus stood, reaching for her again. I fell in love with you. Yes, I knew your family had money, but that's not why. When did you ask me about Mom's finances? Jennifer's voice was shaking. When? I was just being responsible. First date, she said, and I could see the memories clicking into place. You asked if I helped support my mom. You asked about Dad's life insurance. You asked... Her voice broke. Oh, God, you asked everything. Because I cared about you, about your family situation. You showed up at my mother's house 3 days after our wedding with power of attorney documents, Jennifer shouted. 3 days, Marcus. To help her, to protect her from predatory... No. Jennifer's voice went cold in a way I'd never heard before. No. You were the predator. My mother was the target, and I was... What? The access point? The silence in the room was absolute. Jenny, please, Marcus said, and for the first time, I heard genuine desperation in his voice. I love you. Everything else is complicated, but that's real. I love you. You love my mother's $7 million, Jennifer said. How much of that did you expect to get, Marcus? How much before you filed for divorce like you did with Patricia? He had no answer. For the first time since I'd met him, Marcus Webb was speechless. Jennifer looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I stood and opened my arms, and she ran to me like she was a child again. Over her shoulder, I watched Marcus's face transform from shock to fury to cold calculation. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, Edward said, standing as well. It is. You have no access to Mrs. Whitmore's assets, no claim to her estate, and as of this moment, I'm filing a restraining order on her behalf. If you contact her again, we'll pursue harassment charges. Marcus looked at Jennifer. You're really choosing her side? She lifted her head from my shoulder. I'm choosing the truth. Get out. He left, and the door closing behind him sounded like the end of a very long, very dark chapter. The aftermath unfolded over the next 3 weeks with a precision that would have made Robert proud. Jennifer moved back home the same night as the confrontation at Edward's office. She arrived with 2 suitcases and Marcus's wedding ring in her pocket. I can't go back there, she'd said, standing in my doorway. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Stay as long as you need, I'd told her. Forever, if you want. We'd stayed up until dawn that night, and she'd told me everything. How Marcus had isolated her from friends, always with a reasonable excuse. How he'd convinced her to combine their finances after just 3 months of dating. How he'd been the one to suggest marriage, to push for a quick wedding, to insist on meeting me alone. I thought he was ambitious, she whispered. I thought he was taking care of me, but he was positioning himself the whole time. You couldn't have known, I said. But you did. You knew something was wrong, and I called you paranoid. I chose him over you. No, I said firmly. You chose what looked like love. That's not the same thing. The legal proceedings were swift and brutal. Jennifer filed for an annulment on grounds of fraud. Marcus had concealed his prior marriage and his history of financial manipulation. Edward connected us with Barbara Stern, Patricia's divorce attorney, who was more than willing to testify. Marcus fought it. Of course he did. He hired an expensive attorney, paid for, we discovered, with credit cards in Jennifer's name that she'd never seen. That became part of the fraud evidence. He opened accounts in my name? Jennifer had stared at the credit reports Edward obtained. $10,000 in charges I never made? He was building debt while planning to take your inheritance, Edward explained. After the divorce, the debt would be yours, the settlement would be his. Tom Reynolds's investigation deepened. With Barbara's help, he contacted Patricia, who agreed to give a statement. Then Amanda Hendricks, who'd stayed silent for years out of shame, came forward too. 2 women, 2 patterns, 2 near-identical schemes. There might be others, Tom told me. Men like Marcus Webb often have a long history. But these 2 are enough. The annulment hearing was scheduled for November. Marcus's attorney tried to delay, to negotiate, to suggest mediation. Edward shut down every attempt. "Your client is a serial con artist," Edward said in one particularly heated exchange. "Mrs. Webb has grounds for criminal fraud charges, not just annulment. Consider this the generous option." 2 days before the hearing, Marcus made one final attempt. He called Jennifer directly, despite the restraining order. "Jenny, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we have something real. Don't throw away our marriage because your mother poisoned you against me." Jennifer recorded the call. Edward immediately filed contempt charges for violating the restraining order. "He's desperate," Edward said. "He knows he's losing." The hearing was on a Wednesday morning. Marcus showed up in an expensive suit, but I noticed the cracks, the too long hair, the hollow look in his eyes. His attorney presented a weak defense about misunderstandings and communication failures. Edward destroyed them methodically. He presented timeline documents, bank records, testimony from Patricia and Amanda, evidence of the credit card fraud, recordings of Marcus's threats. "Your Honor," Edward said in his closing statement, "Mr. Webb is a predator who has made a career of targeting vulnerable women and their families. He manipulated his way into Mrs. Jennifer Webb's life with the explicit intention of defrauding her mother. This marriage was a sham from inception." The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, reviewed the evidence in silence. Then she looked at Marcus with barely concealed disgust. "Annulment granted," she said. "Additionally, I'm ordering Mr. Webb to pay restitution for the fraudulent credit card charges and legal fees. And Mr. Webb? You're fortunate Mrs. Whitmore chose civil proceedings. This evidence could easily support criminal charges." Marcus's face went white. His attorney tried to object, but it was over. In the hallway afterward, Marcus appeared one last time. "You'll regret this," he said to me. "Both of you." "No," Jennifer said, stepping between us. "You'll regret underestimating us." Security escorted him out. I watched him go and felt no triumph, only relief. It was truly over. But there was one more piece of business. Edward arranged a meeting with Patricia and Amanda the following week. 3 women who'd been targeted, sitting in Edward's conference room, sharing their stories. "He almost destroyed me," Patricia said quietly. "After the divorce, I was so ashamed. I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for it." "You weren't stupid," Amanda said. "He's a professional. He knows exactly what to say, exactly how to manipulate." "Thank you," I told them both. If you hadn't been willing to come forward, to speak up, he might have succeeded with Jennifer. "How is she?" Patricia asked. "Healing," I said. "Slowly, but she will." That evening, Edward called with the final piece. The state attorney's office reviewed the case. They're opening a formal investigation into Marcus for fraud and identity theft. With 3 victims willing to testify, they think they have enough for criminal charges. "Good," I said. I felt no pity. Marcus had preyed on grieving women, on love and trust. He deserved every consequence. Jennifer started therapy the next week. She went back to work, slowly reconnected with the friends Marcus had isolated her from. Some nights she cried. Some nights we watched old movies and ate ice cream like she was 16 again. "I married a monster," she said once. "You married a liar," I corrected. "And you were brave enough to walk away when you learned the truth. That takes strength." Robert's $7 million sat safely in accounts Marcus had never touched, earning interest, waiting for Jennifer's future. The future she'd build on her own terms, without a predator whispering in her ear. We won. Completely, utterly, without compromise. And Marcus Webb's name became a warning, a cautionary tale, a reminder that some people see love as a transaction. But we, Jennifer and I, we remembered what it really meant. 6 months later, life looked entirely different. Jennifer moved into her own apartment in March, a sunny 2-bedroom where she could rebuild herself. Her boss at the hospital promoted her to senior administrator. She joined a book club, started pottery classes, reconnected with friends Marcus had isolated her from. "I forgot who I was," she told me over Sunday brunch. "But I'm finding myself again." She looked healthy, color in her cheeks, light in her eyes. She was becoming herself again. As for me, I discovered I had more life left than I'd realized. I visited Carol in Seattle, reconnected with old friends, even started dating a retired teacher named Paul, who never once asked about my finances. Jennifer and I met with a financial advisor and created a plan for Robert's inheritance. We established the Robert Whitmore Memorial Scholarship for women escaping abusive relationships. The first recipient was a single mother studying nursing. "Dad would be proud of you, Mom," Jennifer said at the ceremony, "for fighting, for protecting us both." While our lives bloomed, Marcus's withered spectacularly. He was charged with fraud, identity theft, and forgery. 5 more women came forward with identical stories spanning 10 years. He faced 15 years in prison. His parents' real estate company collapsed under the scandal. Investors fled. Diane filed for divorce, and Marcus lost everything. His assets seized for victim restitution, his face plastered across news articles as a warning about financial predators. I saw him once at a grocery store, looking older, beaten down. Our eyes met briefly. I turned my cart and walked away. He was no longer worth my time. That evening, Jennifer came over for dinner. We cooked, laughed, talked about her pottery class and Paul's terrible puns. "We survived, Mom," she said. "We did more than survive," I corrected. "We won." Marcus Webb had tried to take everything. Instead, he'd lost it all, and we'd never been stronger. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. What would you have done in my place? Would you have signed those papers to keep the peace? Would you have investigated your son-in-law, risking your daughter's anger? Would you have had the courage to stand alone when everyone questioned your judgment? I hope you never have to face what we faced. But if you do, trust your instincts. Verify the facts. Protect what matters. And never, ever let anyone make you doubt your own worth. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it. Let other women know they're not alone, that fighting back is possible, that victory is real. What would you do?